China, a whole world unto its own, and in fact increasingly becoming more and more that way. Today here in Limassol, Cyprus, at the Limassol Yacht Club, Paul Orford is with us.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi Paul, nice to see you.
Pleasure as always.
China, what a place, right?
Fantastic.
It certainly is.
When I first went there, 5 years ago, I went to Shanghai. Now, bearing in mind, I'd been living in sleepy Limassol for quite a while, working here, commuting. There's no real buildings over 5 floors high.
That's right.
So to go to Shanghai then was staggering, jaw-dropping. It was like the future. You know, you're just amazed.
Very futuristic.
The sheer size of it, the movement of people.
That's right.
Oh, amazing.
It is.
You can really know that it is the number one country in the world in the next 30, 50
certainly.
years.
It is. If you go to China, you see the future, especially Shanghai. I agree. I think it's an amazing place. It is actually becoming, it's been the focus of the FX industry on the retail side for quite some time. But I think, having done a lot of research in China, that most of the westernized companies, whether they might be in Cyprus or London or Australia or other parts of Europe, have scratched the surface by getting using the IB model, operating from their existing base and recruiting IBs in China to actually send client funds en masse to a westernized brokerage where the brokerage does the execution, but the IB looks after everything else. Client relationships, portfolio management.
It's like a de facto brokerage in itself.
It is very much like that. And I think that was not understood at first because you can't see into China and China can't see out. It's blocked because of firewall. But it is like a de facto brokerage. Most of them are bigger than many retail brokerages in the world.
I remember some of the articles you first wrote over there when you messaged me to say, look, I've just visited this IB, and they're bigger than brokerages in London, in Limassol, you know, wherever.
Well,
the amount of volume that they're trading, the amount of cash on deposit,
Absolutely.
Clients, you know, like before we were just talking about Shanghai, you know, we talk about the major cities, but when you went off the beaten track, we'll call it.
to the development
But these
towns.
are still massive cities.
Huge.
You know,
Development
millions.
towns, 15, 20 million people, city been established 5 years or so. And you have there companies where it's an IB in a way, and there's also portfolio management, and they have staff, often over 100 staff per office. Very organised, usually in plate glass, top quality offices. The only thing that's being done abroad is the execution.
Correct.
However, the modesty of the Chinese businessman is remarkable. These people are very, very well organised. They understand this industry very clearly. It's a misconception to think that a Chinese IB or a Chinese partner or brokerage doesn't understand these. They understand quite possibly. If you look at a generalisation, more than anywhere else, they are very knowledgeable people.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
and the actual thing is that the whole way of doing business is modesty.
Yes.
You see a young person who's an IB, you go there as a brokerage, they want to do an IB relationship, they'll say, I want to test the system, I'll put in 250. He means 250 million.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
A lot of the Western brokerages have established their own business based upon China.
They have
which,
indeed.
Again, from your publication, which you outlined recently, there are a number of changes which are coming. So they'll have to adapt their business accordingly.
Yes, indeed.
Because I believe that it's the same as the Great Wall of China. It's designed to keep us out.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't to keep us in, or
That's
to
right.
keep us. You know, they've got their knowledge base now. They know how to do it. They've learned, they've adapted. Like Hong Kong, for example, they understood from the old colonial times. Britain developed it as a trading port and now financial hub of the world. Obviously, it's theirs now. And they learned from that how commerce, banking, everything like that. Now, it's the same with Forex and FX in general, where they've learned the whole ecosystem, how it works, from dealing to prime brokerage, the software.
They're manufacturing their own.
Yeah, that's it. You know, like 5 years' time, will there be the orthodox Western retail platform, which I guess you could call MT4, MT5? Would they go their own way?
Yes, they will. And this is how they're going to do it, in my opinion. Chinese government turn a little bit of a blind eye so far to IBs sending capital to foreign brokerages. Now, most of the brokerages in China who are actually doing the lion's share of business have got a Chinese partnership office in China. For example, Saxo Bank, FXCM, FXDD, Blackwell Global, it's a Chinese company.
Sure.
You have many of these large companies like that have offices in mainland China or in Hong Kong, or Singapore, where they've got access to the actual Chinese market through joint venture partnerships in partnership with the Chinese government and with government control. Those are there to stay, and these are the companies that are being preferred to be used by Chinese partners. However, the Chinese government now has started to get a bit worried about the outflow of capital from these brokerages to companies that don't have a Chinese presence. So now, if you are a Chinese IB or a retail trader, you're going to have to make a signature on the transfer of capital as to what it's for. And if it's for securities trading or FX, they won't allow it. So what does this mean? The People's Bank of China, which owns the regulator and is owned by the government, will now start to become its own liquidity provider. We've seen this 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was in China. People's Bank of China is becoming its own prime brokerage, but specifically for the Chinese domestic market. The whole ecosystem will be based in China, which removes this whole difficulty between getting through the firewall and taking the money outside. Once that happens, the Chinese forex industry will become enormous, the biggest in the world by far, and it will be all domestic with no barriers, all controlled by the state. So therefore, effectively, it's all one component, whether it's tier one bank, prime brokerage, platform, which will be MT4, because but even so, the whole stack will be Chinese government controlled, and it will just make it easy life for everybody, but it will stop anybody doing business who is a foreign brokerage who doesn't have presence in mainland China via joint venture partnerships.
I personally think as well that they will just squeeze out the foreign 50-50 partnership as well, because
they might do that. Yes,
I mean, look, why would they take 50% when they can take 100?
Right.
You know, it doesn't make sense. It's there's the risk of the capital outflowing if it's a foreign-owned company.
That's right.
When they can have, say, let's say Shenzhen, for example, the government could say, okay, we're going to give out 50 licenses in Shenzhen, therefore we know who the owners are, we know where the finance is going to be, not a 1 yuan of that it's going to leave the country. Everything's done. We know regulatory-wise the guy is on the up and up, or the woman, and everything can be internalised.
That's what they'll do.
I mean, look at the challenges that have happened with the Chinese retail market outside, where for one reason or another there's been challenges with the withdrawal of funds, execution. They can eliminate all this.
They can, and they will do. The only way they'll do it, you see, I agree with you, they will internalise everything. However, there are many, many Western brokerages now that have Chinese offices, and the technology partners will have to also have. Goldeye has an office in Shanghai for their integrations technology, liquidity management system. You have all of the... I was in China last week. Vantage FX, ADS Securities, AxiTrader, Leverett, the technology provider. Everyone, all of those companies have Chinese offices, fully staffed by Chinese staff, and as a result, it's done through a joint venture partnership where the Chinese government has control. They will be fine because they will be considered a Chinese entity because the government has enough control. But as far as any non-Chinese companies wanting to do business from the outside is concerned, that's going to stop.
No, that's it. I think a lot of the companies who have based their business solely upon this practice, they're going to have a challenging couple of years coming up. They will have to find a new model to operate.
Do you think that some of them, some of the smaller brokerages that have taken some business from China, for example, Exness just here in the Limassol Marina here, do a lot of business in China. It's a Russian company based here in Cyprus. No Chinese office, however. Not just them, but many other companies of that size with that type of volume coming from China started to get some IB flow, and they realised probably that it's not sustainable unless they're investing in China and going through the right channels. But because the money keeps coming, they're letting it carry on until such time that someone stops it.
Do you think it's too late now if you're a new guy to get in there, you know, and establish?
Yes.
I mean, look, not just as you're making a yard or two as a low-level sort of guy, but if you really want to do it properly.
Yes,
get that 10
it
to
is.
15, 20 yards out
No
of there
good.
per month.
No
You've
good at
missed
all.
the boat, haven't you? I think?
Absolutely. Unless you are going to go through the channel of becoming a Chinese company and having a Chinese joint venture with an existing company that's already there and already got its market. Because there's no other way.
What do you think the mechanics of doing this are then? It
Well,
must be very complex.
They are. The only way to do it is to find an IB or a Chinese company that already exists, that's got the right people on board, that has all the relationships in place in China, the client relationships, the prime brokerage relationship with the Chinese banks, because that's the way it's going to go now.
Of course, yeah.
The Chinese banks will be giving direct liquidity to Chinese prime brokerages, which will be connecting to Chinese retail brokerage, which will license the MT4 platforms. The whole thing will be Chinese. The only way is to go and do a joint venture project with one of those companies via a Western technology partnership basis, but through their office in China. Or if you're a Chinese company, the only way to get a relationship with a Western company is to do it through the Chinese office. Because there will be no possibility, as you say, one WAN goes outside China, it won't be allowed. So the entry barrier now is more about forging the right joint venture partnerships with the right partners. Once you do that and you get the joint venture with the right government-backed partner, then it's okay. Because there's no other way. You know, even nobody speaks English. There's no internet. Everything's blocked, apart from Chinese. They don't even use email over there, you know. They're using WeChat for everything, for business, for everything. So the whole system is internal. There's no other way. And now the government's blocking it. I think it's, unless you have got a partnership with a Western with a Chinese company, if you're a Western company, unless you have a partnership with a Chinese company, that's it. There's no chance.
I think so too. It's going to be interesting, you know, next couple of years there, because they've learnt a tremendous amount.
They have,
you know, and we'll see how it goes essentially.
Yes. How do you compare China in terms of, from your point of view, as a prime brokerage that is offering liquidity and prime brokerage solutions to retail companies? How would you consider that as a development ground, to go through that procedure and have a joint venture partnership, compared to looking at other parts of Southeast Asia which are less developed, but are currently the focus, such as Indonesia or Malaysia or South Korea?
It's a huge market. I've never really considered it one of my own, because obviously I don't speak the language, and for me that's always the first thing where you've got to establish common ground, is to speak the language.
Yes, that's right.
So I've primarily focused on Southeast Asia. Middle East is very big for ourselves, and the local brokerages, you know. But I would say where we focus more is the GCC region.
Right.
You know, because there's it's geographically it's close to us.
Yes, it is.
Look, obviously I don't speak Arabic, but a lot of them speak English, and it's just a lot easier.
That's right.
You
so
know,
I think it's also open. It's not blocked. There's no firewall.
Yeah, correct. I mean, you can establish good relationships over there with fantastic trading volumes, good long-term clients, you know, who are knowledgeable of the market. Same with Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Thailand. Thailand's up and coming.
It is, yes.
Thailand is, give that a few years, that'd be fantastic, because I've got partners out there who have introduced some brokers. They started off small and now they're doing, for what they are, decent volumes.
Right, interesting.
So it is an interesting region. I mean, you could go from Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, all that region, you know. It's a good niche to get into.
It is indeed. And I think the number of clients and the number of potential brokerages that might use the services there, whether it's technological or prime, is less. But the entry barrier, China is a powerhouse. It is a powerhouse. The people there are knowledgeable. The companies there are gigantic. So, you know, it's not unusual to have a provincial IB with 300 million assets under management.
Yeah, that's it.
But the entry barriers, unless you are already in partnership with a Chinese joint venture and supervised by the government, are prohibitive to a lot of small companies. So I think
but that's not bad in a way, though, because I'm not saying that small is bad. However, if you're an established company, you don't have the same financial challenges as a small company where you need to make it work.
That's right.
It's not your only iron in the fire, so to speak. You know, if you're FXCM, Saxo, or whoever, okay, it's great to have a massive presence in China, in which you make substantial revenues from, but that's not your only source of revenue.
No, exactly.
You know, so if you're a small guy and you go into China, the chances are that's 90% of your business, 95%. what happens then? You know, if they close the door.
Well, that's right. It's quite obvious that the ones that got in there early and did it properly through joint venture partnerships are the ones who are now so established. The name is so well recognised in China because there's no fear of sending capital outside from the Chinese investors' point of view as well as the government. Saxo Bank, for example, is been there a very long time. FXCM. Going to all of the brokerages in the second-tier development towns all over the country, you see FXCM, Gain Capital, Saxo Bank, FXDD, GKFX Literature, all in Chinese.
Yep.
All over the whole country. FXCM is one of the largest retail brokerages in the world.
Yes.
Now has resurrected its institutional side, but only in the Western world. On the Chinese side, it's huge. Their Asia Pacific CEO has been with the company for 12 years.
Of course, yeah.
You never hear from him because his working day is so organised, so well established that it's a question of keeping the company ticking over.
Yeah,
and that's it pretty much.
Yeah, that's it. You're not really trying to bash down the doors to get your name known.
No, everything's
you've done
in
the hard
place.
work already. Yes.
Everything's in place. The government has enough control over it. Joint venture partnerships are all in place.
Yeah, it's established, isn't it?
Established.
It's like
and
the government
it all works
aren't
perfectly.
worried. You know, they know who you are, what you're doing.
That's right.
There's no
They
funny
can
business.
see everything.
Yeah.
The funds are all kept there.
Yeah.
They have banking relationships there. They have everything. There's no... And the volume is large from there. So as a result, their management team over there in FXCM Asia, it's just a question of keeping the status quo.
Yeah.
And that's it. But any newcomer who doesn't go down that route and invest there and get a prime brokerage relationship with China, which you can't unless you're a Chinese company, so it means establishing a Chinese company and then working with the Chinese banks, Chinese prime brokerage, technology providers, integration providers and so forth, whether that's Goldeye or whether it's a Chinese firm, because there are Chinese firms that are doing all this now. It has to be China specific, otherwise no chance.
Yeah, you can forget
Not
it.
a chance.
You can absolutely forget it.
That's right.
It's an interesting region now, I find, because it is so foreign in inverted commas to Europe.
It is. It's
You
well,
know,
it's
when
blocked.
you go there,
It's
you
blocked.
are. You know, you're not in your comfort zone, so to
That's
speak. As I say,
right.
there's no English.
No.
The food is radically different. The culture's
That's
radically
right.
different.
The internet's blocked.
Yeah, the speed of life.
No credit card, no Visa, no MasterCard, no Maps, no Google, nothing. Everything's completely Chinese orientated.
Yeah.
So even if it wasn't the law that you have to have a partnership, you'd have to have some kind of joint venture anyway to navigate this.
I mean, it'd be impossible otherwise, wouldn't it?
It would be.
You wouldn't know.
It would be. But I can assure you, especially after the last, we will continue doing conferences in China. It is a major region of interest for us in terms of research and as industry conferences. It is becoming, once it's allowed to be its own complete ecosystem, which it will be now, it will lead the world in FX.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of people you have there, the interest.
The interest in understanding
the
and knowledge.
age of the people.
The age of the people.
Yeah, it's technologically savvy.
Yeah, yes. And the level of the quality of the whole component ecosystem is very high.
Yeah.
It's very high. People's Bank of China will be able to establish tier one relationships, aggregated feeds, best execution with completely seamless system. There's no lots of components joined together. It's one system.
Yeah, and also it's always working in harmony with all the other parts.
That's right.
Because that's the nature of the government and society over there.
It is.
That everything works in harmony.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a good ethos.
Yeah, because
It's a
everything
really good
in
ethos.
our world, we'll call it, works in
Individually,
contrast. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like we try and put a square peg in a round hole.
That's right. And it's individual system. It's a business orientated, but a different type of business orientated, where everything's individual. China, they are business orientated, but I think of it like this: the government is a one large corporation.
Yeah.
And then everybody under that is working for that large corporation. So there are no differences in the actual structure of anything.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They have a massive advantage when it comes to that.
No, it's very good. This is where I think in the future, they were used to it, their 5-year plans, 10-year plans, etc., where they can really push on with this now. They have a long-term game.
Yes, that's
where
right.
in Western governments they don't. They're always looking to go for the next election rather than think of a long-term economic plan for their country. China, you don't need to.
No, you don't.
You know, you can say, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do
That's it. And there's no expensive management consultancy fees or lawyer. You just go to the relevant government department who understands exactly what you're talking about. They buy 30 to 50% of your company, and the next day away you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
So that is the future. And I would say, I would end on this from my opinion. Many companies in this industry have over the last, especially in the retail side, have over the last few years thought that the Chinese need us.
Yeah.
They need us so they can actually use the Western execution model and deposit capital with brokers here. It's the other way around. We need them.
Yeah, it's 100% right. 100% right.
It's totally the other way around. So that's how when you go there and see that in detail, it's quite apparent.
Yeah, that's it. I agree.
Absolutely, very interesting. Paul Orford from AMB Prime.
Pleasure as always.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
All the best.